Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class today is sponsored by Emmanuel Zara and dedicated in honor of Murray Dayan for his contributions to the Keilah and his kindness. Also dedicated in celebration of the engagement of Helen Mahani to Murray Mizrahi by Sarah and Shai Mahani Mabruk. And dedicated in loving memory of her beloved grandmother, Nishmat Moloch Bat Shmuel, from her granddaughter, Michelle Golbari. And in dedicated in celebration of Layla's birthday by her husband, Akiva, and son, Uriel Raskin. Mazal Tov. Sponsored by Stephen Rapport, the Breakfast King, in honor of Sonny Doer. Thank you for all that you do for the synagogue and for the community. In loving memory, Ms. Lily Safra, Nishmat Leah Bat Chana, her philanthropy reached and continues to reach so many throughout the entire world. For Refuah Shlema, for Rabbi Eli Abad Elav Shimon Ben Mazar Fortuna, and Rabbanit Chana Farhi Chana Bat Sima Fega. And as well, the week of Breakfast and the Class is dedicated for the health and happiness of their family and for the shidduchim of their children. Sponsors by Doctors Habib and Rhonda Monas. And finally, the week of Kobu sponsored by David Yash in honor of you and your substantial capacity to good today and every day. My friends, I want to start by wishing everyone a Chodesh Tov Mvorach. We have Rosh Chodesh is today and tomorrow. It is Rosh Chodesh Iyar. And as the famous idea goes, Iyar is letters Aleph, Yud, and Resh, which many people say, and as well it is our tefillah, that stands for Ani, Amunai, Yud, Rofecha. Ani am Hashem, I am Hashem, your healer. Be'ezrat Hashem, we should all experience the healing powers of Borei Olam from everything, from all the sicknesses in our world, sicknesses that are physical, my friends, and more and more, we are realizing these sicknesses that are emotional, the sicknesses that are mental. We want to, of course, have a tremendous shout out to Simcha for everything that they do in the community to be able to promote mental health and stability. Be'ezrat Hashem, this month should provide many successes in this area, beruhaniyut, begashmiyut, in all different areas. Let us begin. My friends, we have a double barrel parashah this week. The parashah is the parashah of Tazria-Metzora. And I noticed something that I thought was quite an interesting, kind of almost an anomaly. Generally, when the Torah sets things up, it sets things up in a very misudar way, in a very orderly way. And I want to just kind of give you a bit of an overview of how the parashiot are structured. And then I want to draw a beautiful lesson, I think, from the way the Torah set this up. I'll just take you through it and tell me if you notice off the top of the bat what's off. Tazria begins with the tum'ah, the impurity that comes when a woman gives birth to a baby boy. She has a brit milah, but in the aftermath of giving birth to the baby, the woman is impure after having given birth. It tells us then that someone who's impure can't go into the Beit HaMikdash, etc., and eat whole kodashim. And then it tells us about the sacrifices of a yoledet, of someone that's given birth, which sacrifices she had to bring in the Torah. After that, it starts telling us all about tzarat. Show it to the Kohen, don't remove the signs of tzarat, how the Mesorah has to be separate from the people, how you have to observe the laws of the tzarat and the clothing, and so on and so forth. Metzorah then goes into the purification process of a Metzorah, the different kinds of the Metzorah, the Kohen shaving the Metzorah, the impure, the mikveh, the korbanot, Metzarat, Metzorah, until finally it then tells us the laws of Zav, of someone who finds an emission, the Tumah of Shechvat Zera, the laws of Nida, the laws of Zavah, and then a Zavah brings a korban. My friends, what do you notice straight off the bat? That we have what's called a tzarat sandwich. That's a little weird. Let me explain what I mean when I say tzarat sandwich. What's the name of parashat Tazria? Tazria, which means when a woman gives birth. But the vast majority of the parashat does not deal with the woman giving birth. What does it deal with? It deals with the mitzvah of tzarat and Metzorah. The next week's parasha is called Metzorah. What does that deal with? The purification process of the Metzorah and other random elements of Tum'ah. All those random elements, Zav, Shechvat Zera, Nida, that's really the place where we should be talking about yoledet. We start with a woman giving birth, her tum'ah. We end with all these other random tum'ah. But the whole middle is Metzora, is the laws of tzarat and Metzora. And the names of the parashiot, and as well the breakup of these two issues, seems to me to be a little bit strange. And not only that, the tum'ah of a yoledet is really such a different category than all these other tum'ah, right? You think about it. All these other things seem to be negative things, a flow, a sign on mark on the body. What are we meant to be learning from the order and from the structure of these parashiot? My friends, I want to share with you, I think that this is a magnificent idea. Is giving birth to a child a positive thing? Of course. Could you imagine a more beautiful mitzvah than the mitzvah of giving birth to children? It's in fact the very first commandment that we find in the whole Torah. Peru urevu umil'u et haaretz. Be fruitful, multiply. This mitzvah, it's at the core of what it means to be a Jew. In fact, if a person was to go into the Kodesh HaKodashim, what do you see as soon as you walk in? The face of the cherubs on top of the Aron to the face of the children. Why? Because the holiest thing in the Jewish religion, what sits in the Holy of Holies? The children, the future, our youth. How could it be that a woman who gives birth to children, how could it be that results in tum'ah, in impurity? And my friends, many Sefarim have dealt with this question. And one of the most beautiful answers that you see that's brought down, and that basically it's rooted in a Kabbalistic idea, is that when there is an absence, a vacuum of Kedusha, a place where there was potential, where there was an ability to have something be very holy, and then that holiness leaves, in the absence of that holiness, what rushes in? Right? Wise men say, only fools rush in. Correct? What rushes in? Tum'ah. What that means is that in every single scenario of the birth of a child, you have a woman who held on to, who nurtured within herself the gift of life. Not only that, our Chachamim tell us that when a baby is in the womb of its mother, it has the opportunity to study with a malach. She's imbuing in her home, so to speak. She's imbuing this baby with Torah. And now the baby leaves. What happens? In that moment where the baby is gone, this Kedusha departs. There's a place for impurity. My friends, if I ask you, if you see a person who's drunk on the floor and a drug addict, do you look at this guy and you say, you know something? This drug addict, his nails, the guy has dirt under his fingernails. No one looks at a drug addict and points out that his fingernails are dirty. You don't look at a homeless guy and say, this guy, I don't know, doesn't look like doesn't look like he's earning a respectable living. You don't make criticisms over someone in filth. Who do we criticize? Who do we knock down? Who do we expect something from? Someone that actually has the capacity within them to produce, to do something. The Torah begins by showing us that even someone, a yoledet, could she hold on to the baby forever? Of course not. So why would tum'ah be there? The answer is because when Kedusha is absent, when there was potential and the potential departs, immediately that draws the attention of the fact that where you once were, you no longer are. My friends, the root of Lashon Hara sits on exactly this shelf. That if someone looks at someone and expects something from them, my friends, what happens? If that something is not produced, you have negative speech. You have dashed hopes. If someone has ever spoken Lashon Hara about you, if someone says something negative about you and you let it bother you, understand one thing. The reason why they're talking about you is because they expect more. I need that to land. If someone hears negative speech about them, instead of feeling brokenhearted, upset, you know why they're talking about you? Because you're worth talking about. Because there was Kiddusha there. And that Kiddusha maybe is not where it needed to be. Every time in our generation that somebody is criticized, what happens? You wage war against the person that leveled any sort of criticism. My friends, between you and me, is it your place to open your mouth? No. Should you be spreading language? No. Should the guy have said that about you? No. But when Lashon Hara is spoken, my friends, we are all presented with an opportunity. That opportunity is to ask, why are people talking about me? Why is somebody saying something? There must be truth to what they're saying. Now listen carefully to what I'm saying. Not that there must be truth in what they're saying, but there must be truth in the criticism. Let me explain. The guy is saying, this guy stole $100. Maybe I didn't steal $100, my friends. But I'll tell you one thing. If I was the highest level of being honest, then God would not allow for that criticism to appear in the world at all. He wouldn't let any oxygen come to it. If I'm getting this message from the world around me, it's probably not even true about what they're saying. What the guy is communicating out of his mouth is not emet. But you know what might be true? What might be true is that God is telling me you need to elevate the honesty in your business. You know why? Because we've learned 1,000 times that Borei Olam, He holds the keys to anything that happens to us in our life. No one on this earth, not an animal, not a human being, could bring any damage to a person unless they open themselves up to that damage. Now, it might be that the guy leveling the criticism doesn't know what he's talking about. You know why? Because he's anyway not the reason, not the truth of this. The truth of this is that God is asking me for something. There's a very interesting mitzvah. The mitzvah says when it comes to tzarat, that not only does a person have an obligation to put themselves through the halachot of tzarat, separation, ripping his clothes, growing his hair, covering his face, tameh, separate mitzvah that says you should not remove the tzarat. You got tzarat? Don't remove it. Don't take a knife, cut the tzarat off. My friends, I want to share with you 2 lessons that I learned from that mitzvah. How's a guy going to take tzarat off his arm? How's he going to do it? He'll cut his arm. He'll cut his arm. He'll cut skin off his face, off his back, off his neck. My friends, look at how sensitive human beings are. That the Torah had to command a person, don't self-mutilate, don't chop a piece off of your body, because that's how terrible it feels to have people speak about you. Who would have thought that you need to command people, don't chop off a piece of yourself? But you know what? If people won't speak about me saying, this guy has tzarat, you know what I'm willing to do? I'm willing to take a knife to my own body and slice a piece off. Understand that when you speak about someone, the pain that you're giving him, the Torah is saying, is the equivalent of filleting the fellow. Lesson number 1. Lesson number 2, my friends, says the Sefer HaChinuch, that what are we learning from this mitzvah? That a person should not remove the tzarat. And Minchat Chinuch writes on this mitzvah that when a person experiences a punishment, the way to deal with the punishment is not to remove the punishment. You know what it's like? I want you to imagine that Bar Minan 1,000 times, driving down the road, all of a sudden, the light appears on your dashboard, check engine, you did not want this right now. Now you have to take it to the guy. Let me ask you a question. Imagine you saw a check engine light. You take it to a mechanic, you tell the mechanic, you say, listen, I have a check engine light here. The guy says, nope, you want me to turn off the light? You want me to get it off? Sure. He says, sure. Please. And the guy takes a hammer, smashes the dashboard, breaks the light that says check engine. He says, it's not shining anymore. You tell the mechanic, are you out of your mind? I could have punched my dashboard too. The reason why the check engine light is on might be because I need an oil change, but it might be because something's going to blow up on the highway. I brought it to you, Mr. Mechanic. Why? because I wanted you to check why the light is lighting up. My friends, so many times we're fixated on removing a problem, and we're not realizing that Borez Olam is telling us, check your engine, honey. Someone said something about you, and you're like, this is not true, I cannot, it's not. You're going nuts about removing the statement, filleting off the tzarat. But the tzarat, it was just a check engine light. It was trying to tell you something. It was trying to point out that there's a problem here. And my friends, tzarat leads you to isolation. It leads you to tameh. It's very embarrassing. But my friends, that embarrassment that you're put through, there's a reason for it. When you feel humiliated, you feel like you didn't succeed, you feel like something went bad, you feel like people are speaking about you, there's two ways to deal with it. One way is to punch the check engine light, shut up the check engine light, stop people from talking, threaten the guy. Hazaku Baruch. It's no longer shining. But Borei Olam, in his message to you, you didn't hear it. And what do we learn in the parashah? Hashem starts with tzarat on the house. And you didn't hear, he brings the message a little closer, a little louder, onto the clothes. You didn't hear it, he brings it a little louder, onto the skin. But my friends, what happens after God brings it to the skin? Where does it go if you didn't get the message then? How come there's no fourth step? And I want to share with you and I want to teach you something that is magnificent. Simple answer is, in Judaism always 3 represents reinforcing something. That's why we have 3 avot. Because the trilogy, the chut hamishulash, a 3-ply string or rope, lo b'mehera yinatek, does not rip easily. A 3-ply rope does not rip easily. My friends, so maybe that's the answer. Hashem gave you 3 was enough. I have an alternate suggestion. The lesson starts with your house, the walls. It goes to your clothes. It gets on your skin. What's the 4th lesson? My friends, if you did not learn the lesson that God gave you 3 times, that there's a problem in your life, you know what happens if you ignore the check engine light 1 time? A bigger light comes on. You ignore it a 2nd time, it starts beeping. After you ignore it the 3rd time, what's the lesson? My friends, the lesson is that the engine blows up. The tzarat was only a sign. But the problem that I have in my life, it manifests in a way where my whole life comes grinding to a halt. If you're a stingy, selfish, critical, negative, narcissistic person, God could send you however many messages He wants. But you know what happens after those 3 messages? Then your narcissism destroys the family. Then the wife leaves and the kids don't talk to you and your business partners break off relationships. Do you understand? It's not that the messages stop. It's that the messages which were designed to stop your life from falling apart are no longer there, because the life falling apart is the 4th message. So ask yourself this question the next time you get a little message. Is this loud enough? I remember when I was a kid. So they used to wake the guys up in the camp and in yeshiva. They would come and they say, good morning, wake up, whatever. And they come in the 2nd time, good morning. After the 3rd time, you know what the guy was allowed to do? He was allowed to take the garbage full of water, soak your bed. You ever get that? I don't know if you had that ever. Or a super soaker. So the guy would come in 1 time, you tell him, I'm up. 2nd time, you're still sleeping. The guy comes in, I'm up. The 3rd time, the guy walks in the door, every guy in the whole bunk jumps out of bed before he gets, I'm up. Because you don't want that sign to land. That sign lands, all your stuff is soaked, your bed smells like mold, you understand? My friends, at a certain point we have to ask ourselves, how quiet do we want the tochacha to be? And what if, instead of waiting for things to fall apart, at the smallest sound, we were able already to say, 1 second, Shtabach Shemo, I heard you, I got it, nothing necessary. If I got out of bed now, I don't need to go to anything less. Hashem should bless us always, never to shoot the messenger, never to mistake the stick. You know what a dog does? A dog bites the stick that hits him. And he doesn't think to himself, who's holding the stick? Sometimes we're so focused on what brought us the problem, and we're not thinking about the fact that Borei Olam is just using this guy as a stick. And what could I do? And how could I change? And how could I improve? And you know what? What he said is not true. But there's got to be some truth to the message. And I want to end with this, just because it's such a beautiful example of this. The rabbi of the Hafetz Chaim was once walking on Shabbat. I love this. As he's walking on Shabbat, two anti-Semites walking by, they say, "Dirty Jew!" He stops. It's Shabbat afternoon. He checks his pockets. He sees he's carrying something. He takes the thing he's carrying out, puts it on the floor, and he carries walking. Anyway, the students asked him, they said, "Dirty Jew, you checked your pockets?" He says, "I knew that if I was not supposed to get a threat, a scream, a wedge at us coming my way, I'm not getting it. So if he told me dirty Jew, it must be from Shamayim. They're telling me, Jew, you're dirty." What's dirt? Dirt's something on a person's body. And I thought to myself, one message, maybe I have something on me. It's Shabbat. Maybe I'm carrying on Shabbat. How disconnected are those two things in the eyes of most of the world? Yet how connected are those two things in the eyes of a Sadiq, or a person who understands how God operates? Hashem should bless us always to be able to see God's hand and God's signposts in a way where they do beautiful things, solve the problems that they were designed to bring our attention to. Baruch Adonai Le'olam.